Now, with Republican candidate Donald Trump erasing Harris leads in the polls and even leading in a few polls, the U.S. elections was part of nearly every conversation among the finance officials, central bankers, and civil society groups attending the meeting in Washington. Fears are running high with concerns over Trump's potential to upend the global finance system with massive tariff increases, trillions of dollars more in debt issuance, and much more. Trump has vowed to impose a 10% tariff on imports from all countries and 60% duties on imports from China. These would hit supply chains throughout the world, likely triggering retaliation and rising the costs. Now, this is after the IMF also warned that trade tariffs favored by Trump could hurt global growth prospects. To discuss whether these fears are indeed justified, we have with us Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies, United States. Thank you so much for joining us here, Jayant. I want to start by asking you, the recent polls have revealed that the voters' support to U.S. Vice President's tax and housing policies compared with the Republican nominee. Why is it so, and will it prove to be the deciding factor?
See, Ankit, one doesn't really know which way things happen, but if you look at the business world in the US, there are surely concerns, because of many reasons. First is, of course, the political uncertainty, and secondly, some of the big tech companies' earnings are down. If you look at some of the performance, some of the results which have come of Apple or likely to come, McDonald's, Boeing, those performances are clearly down. So that's the risk, and also. That's a concern actually, and also the rising treasury yields. The current rate is being talked about at about 4.25%. So I think that's another big risk. Beyond the political uncertainty. As we all know, Trump has taken a slight lead over Kamala Harris. So I think the major concern the U.S. business has is that if Trump comes to power, he has declared that the import tariffs will go up. Primarily to help the domestic manufacturing in the U.S. so that domestic supplies are preferred over imported ones. But if that happens, it's not that simple. While it may help the domestic manufacturing to a limited extent, right, but it would also result into higher prices. And higher prices would mean, with great difficulty in last 2 years or so, the inflation which has been contained. We all know the Fed's target of 2%. I think if prices go up, especially for the consumer products, inflation is likely to go up too. So I think these are the primary concerns that the business world in the US seems to be having, Ankit.
You're talking about inflation, and Mr. Trump has blamed his successor, big spending on inflation, and vowed a return to an agenda of lower taxes and less regulations. Is this, somewhere enough to try and answer those doubts that people have on Donald Trump?
See, in politics, in elections, this kind of a blame game is not uncommon. It keeps happening, and almost all over the world, we have seen in our own country and US, everywhere that the government, the earlier government is blamed for lots of things not falling in place. If you look at Joe Biden, a lot of good things have happened, but obviously there are a lot of areas of concern as well. So it's very easy. It's easier said than done. But if you look at the overall Trump proposals, I have a feeling they will lead to eventually greater government borrowings. And if you have a larger chunk of government seeking more borrowings to augment its resources, it becomes riskier to invest in government securities also. And if the risk with government securities goes up, so it's always, it has been seen that the interest that the investors seek goes up, which is already the yield, the rising the treasury yield is around 4.25%. So it will go up beyond higher interest for most government securities. That's another huge concern that they have right now.
Talk to me about how do you see, if this happens, if Trump administration does come in, the fears that the industries have, how do you see the ripple effect on the global economy of that?
See, if you look at the previous regime of Trump, I think generally he was good for U.S. business. I mean, there were other concerns about sustainability issues, about its lack of support to the climate agenda, the Paris Accord, they walked out of it. The US as a country walked out of it. So those are concerns. But by and large, he was reasonably good for business. That's most of his opponents also believe. But today the concern is, in the US business is also about the Federal Reserves. What their next moves are going to be, and there are apprehensions that whether they will maintain the higher rates for a much longer period than what is anticipated as of now. So I think it's not just political uncertainty, but a lot of these factors, pulled in. They have increased the concerns of the U.S. business.
Jayant Krishna, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on NDTV World.